And welcome back, students. If you recall, last time we discussed a Boolean method called proceeds. Today we're going to look at some other methods known as equals and toString. These are two very common methods that you will see quite often inside of a class. So let's start off by talking about the Java libraries and methods that are typically to be included. Now, Java expects certain methods in almost every class. This is because the standard Java libraries have software that assumes such methods are defined. Two of these methods are equals and toString. Therefore, when we're making our own classes, we should include the methods in our class. Now, the spelling has to be precise, so you have to have like lowercase equals and then lowercase 2 for an uppercase string. All right, you have to spell them exactly like that because that's how Java is going to be looking for them. Now, note we saw and used these methods in date4try class in our previous lesson, so we already have a bit of familiarity with them, even if we haven't invoked them. So let's start with equals of the two methods. The method equals is a Boolean value method to compare two objects of the class to see if they satisfy the notion of being equal. Well, the heading is just public Boolean equals class name parameter name. We saw this in date4try, public Boolean equals date4try other date. When we use the method equals to compare two objects of the class date4try, one object is the calling object and the other is the argument. Date1.equals date2 or date2.equals date1. So what is the actual equality that we're going to be looking at here? Because the method equals returns the type Boolean, you can use the invocation of equals as the Boolean expression in an if-else statement as shown as the equals and toString demo. Now you'll note that this does use the date4try class, so if you're like, where does these objects come from? It's coming from date4try. There's no absolute notion technically of equality that you must follow in your definition of equals. You can define the method equals in any way that you wish, but to be useful, it should reflect some notion of equality that is useful for the software you're developing. Now, a common way to define equals for a simple class like the ones we're designing is to say equals returns true if each instance variable of one object equals the corresponding instance variable of the other object. So, day is equal to day, month equals a month, year equals a year, etc., etc. All right. You can also rewrite using the this parameter. If we want to clarify our method, we can use the this parameter. So public Boolean equals date4try other date, return this.month equals other date.month, and this.day equals other date.day, and this.year equals other date.year. All right. Just in case you're confused, okay, which one are we talking about? Well, the this, remember, refers to the instance variable. So if date1 and date2 are objects of the class date4try, then date1.equals date2 returns true, provided the three instance variables in date1 have values equal to that of date2. Now you'll note that the method in the definition of equals that is used to compare months is not the equals for date4try, but instead equals for the string class. All right, because remember we're looking at a string, so it's going to actually invoke the comparison using the string.equals. All right, and that's because we know the calling type of that particular object is if type string. So if you stop and think about it though, why are we using the string class for month? Well, remember that we use the equals of the string class because equals does not work correctly for comparing string values. All right, so we can't just say, month equals month. The method toString should be defined, therefore, so that it returns a string value that represents the data in the object. Now, one nice thing about toString is that it's very easy to output an object to the screen. If data is of a type date4try, then you can output the date using system.out.println date.toString. Now, system.out.println was written so that it automatically invokes toString if you do not include it. So the object date can be outputted using just system.out.println date, which is much simpler, right? Now, granted, this doesn't necessarily work correctly for every single thing. If we look particularly like programming to if you take that class, there's going to be some things where we have to use a toString on because even though println will do that, sometimes it returns out, for example, the reference in memory rather than the actual object. So you have to make sure you get very precise. Now, this also means that the write output method we've included in our classes is superfluous and can be omitted from our definitions. So if you remember before when we had our write output method, the purpose of that was to write out date, was to write out month, and was to write out year. Well, rather than writing that method, we can use toString. It already exists. So if we want to just take that out of our program? We can, because toString is going to do the exact same thing. All right, plus use with objects. We can also see, looking at demo code, that toString is called automatically when the object is concatenated with a plus operator. So date1 concatenate with equals, concatenate that with date2. In this case, it is the plus operator that causes the automatic invocation of toString. Therefore, the following is legal. Date1 equals date2, which is equivalent to date1.toString plus equals date2.toString. All right, and with that being said, let's hop over to the workspace here. So this is our date4 try. You can see right here is my equals method. And of course, here's my toString method. All right, now the reason why we said that these are superfluous is because if you look at this one, this is output, this is on print line, month, day, year. What does it return here? Month, date, year. Now, the one thing that you will have to do is, because this is a .toString, is that if I want to actually output this, I have to put it like in a print line statement or store it in a string. All right, so that is the one extra caveat, because here we have the print line built right in. All right, if we look at the actual demo itself, we can see we've created a date object. We have two of them actually. One is set to 6/17/1882, this thing with the second one. Then I'm going to compare them, see if they are equal. Then I'm going to change the date of the first one using setDate. Then I'm going to see if it precedes the other one. So we're using that precedes object that we talked about in our last lesson. So let's go ahead and run our program. And we can see that when they start off, they are equal, which we would expect because the dates are the same. And then here we can see that this date now comes first because it does precede it, because it comes before, not after or equal to. So that wraps up this lesson, folks. So hopefully that gives you some good understanding of how some of these methods work. And with that being said, I will see you next time.